Have any of you woken up in the morning and feel as if your feet never stop? Have you ever woken up in the morning and went, "Oh no," and just immediately went flying into something that you thought you did, but you didn't? If you're younger, have you ever got up and the first thing you did is take up your phone and start looking through emails, through texts, through news, or through Facebook? Science has found how we start our day has an effect on our whole day. How we begin really determines what else happens through the rest of the day. The good news is if we realize we started wrong, we can reset. And sometimes, even if we start it right, we need to reset. But we see that it is important. And part of the way of Jesus, part of the way that Jesus has showed us how we live our life, part of the way in which Jesus showed us is the way to the abundant and fulfilled life, of Jesus being our model and showing us what it really looks like to live into this life, is to be able to start our day correctly. And so today we're going to be looking at that way of prayer. Now, many times when we might think of prayer, we might think of the intercessory prayer. God, here are my problems. Here's what I want from you. Here's what I'd like. Here are the issues. Please do this and that and whatever. All right, thank you. Amen. And then we go on about our day. There is nothing wrong with that type of praying, but it is only one small part of praying. It's sort of like if you're having conversations with someone. There are times when you're really not having a conversation, right? You're just telling somebody information, or you're giving them guidelines, or you're saying something that somebody else needs to know, and there's not any time for a response. If you're living someone, it might be as you're running out the door, it's like, hey, remember, don't forget, we have this going on tonight. You're not expecting anything back, right? It's just, here we go, just instruction, go. But other types of communication require a speaking and a listening. And so many times in prayer, we might be good at the speaking part, but we're not so good at the listening part. And if we're honest in our own communication, sometimes we're good in the speaking part, but we're not so good at the listening part. We tend to be wired in such a way that when somebody else is speaking, we're already thinking about what we're going to say back rather than truly listening to what they're saying. We listen so that we can understand sometimes, rather than listening so that the other person can be understood. Prayer, then, is a way sometimes that we now can stop, be silent, and listen, so that God not only understands us, but we may actually feel understood. And Jesus' way shows us it starts first thing in the morning. Early in the morning, well before sunrise. We don't know how long well is. But Jesus rose, he went to a deserted place where he could be alone in prayer. Now, as you know, we live on the earth, right? That we're depending on where you live, depending is on the length of the day, right? And that depends on the season, right? So if this was in the winter, it would be rather late in the day. If this was in the middle of June, it would be really early in the day. And just so you have an idea of where Israel lies, and he was praying sort of in the Galilee region, because that's where he was sort of centered. That would be somewhere around Memphis, Tennessee, to something like Charleston, South Carolina. So that gives you an idea, in case you're thinking, wow, he's there all the way down by the equator. No, they're right around in there. So the day could be really early like us or really late. We don't know, but we do know before it even came up, before the sunrise, it was still dark. Probably just the twinkling of the sun started to come up where the sky just turns a little bit of color. He went and he went away. And so his way shows us that we all need prayer because we live in a world full of noise and distraction. He went away in the morning to a deserted place where he could spend his time with his Father, our Heavenly Father, the Lord, to sit time and to be in a place of quiet and of rest. Now, for many of us, that's hard, right? If we become quiet, you do what I end up doing. I run until I'm exhausted, and then I sit down to try to be quiet to pray some days, and you know what happens next? I wake up an hour and a half later, right? Because you're running so fast. We no longer know what it's like to have a normal rhythm. You know, Jesus did not have an alarm clock, right? He didn't have something he could set to say, I'm going to get up now to go out and pray. He had the natural rhythm of going to sleep at the right time and getting up when he had enough rest. See, if you wake up with an alarm clock, some of you still may have to. And you're getting up when it rings, it means you are not getting enough sleep. Let's just be honest. If you need an alarm clock to get up, you are not setting your body rhythm right. You're either working too late, you're working too long, you're doing too much. You could be depressed as well. There are many reasons, but if you need that alarm clock to get up, you're not on the right time. Now, if you're the person who you get up always 10 to 15 minutes or longer before your alarm clock, you are getting enough rest. Because it's this world of distraction and noise that pulls us away from that time of rest that we need in order to get up first thing in the morning to pray. And now, since maybe that's our goal, but we haven't got enough rest, and you hit the alarm button, and how many of you have a snooze alarm? If you still use an alarm, how many of you ever hit the snooze alarm? How many times do you hit the snooze alarm? We all have our own ways. I wish I could say, I always get up before my alarm, and I never hit the snooze. But that's not the case. Why? Because I live in a world full of noise and distraction. So how do we live that life? Jesus tells us, well, set your day off right. First thing you should do is when you get up, you should just spend some time with God. Even if it means you make your cup of coffee first. That's perfectly fine. Just spend some time in silence. Maybe it's only 5 minutes, but let your mind be focused on the things of God before it's focused on the things of the day, because otherwise, guess what takes hold? The things of the day. Taking 5 minutes before your rest of the day isn't going to interrupt your day that much. I promise you. So in this case, can we be like Jesus? Can we just take those few minutes to just have our cup of coffee and think in silence? And if things start coming into your mind that, you have to do today. That ever happened to somebody when you try to be quiet? Well, then what you do is you need to have other tapes that you know to play. You hear a voice and you know what you start to think. Let's say you have a cup of coffee. Just think about how warm that coffee is in your hand. Think about how it tastes, how it smells. Think about just how relaxed you are or tight you are. Just think of anything other than that thought, and that will bring you right back to where you are. Now, you have to think about something that you're sensing that takes you back. And some of you may go, well, this is absolutely ridiculous. Actually, we know this from the way our brains work, that these sorts of activities help us from all the distraction because it engages other parts of our mind. This is actually how we're wired, that when we do this, we can actually live better in a world full of noise and distraction, because Jesus shows us what happens when we start to do this. All right? So he was praying, and then what we find out is that his disciples, Simon and everybody else they were looking for, couldn't find him, and so they tracked him down. Do you ever feel that way? You're trying to be alone and someone's tracking you down. It might be a phone, it might be a person, and they go, "Where were you?" Well, that's what they actually said to Jesus. And his response when they found him, right? They said, "Everybody is looking for you," right? "Oh, I'm so glad we found you. Everybody is looking for you." And so what we really know is that without prayer, we end up being pulled in every distraction without clarity. Right? That was Simon Peter, and that was the rest of the people going, "Where's Jesus? Let's run and get to him," right? That's the first thing they thought of. Wait, let's go. Let's run. And how easy is it to be pulled in every sort of direction? Have you ever felt that way? You have so many different things, so many different people, so many different issues calling at you that you just feel you are pulled in so many different directions. You look at it and you go, "I just don't know what to do now. I can't do it all. It all seems like a jumbled mess. I've got my mother, I've got my father, I've got my sister, I've got my brother, I've got my kids, I've got my work, I've got my volunteer time, I've got my church, I've got the pastor, and everyone's telling me to do something different." And we don't have any clarity whatsoever, because just like Jesus was called by everybody else, we're getting pulled everywhere else. And we don't have that clarity because we're not sitting there. And so what Jesus shows us is when we are in that state, solitude in prayer then grounds our identity in God and not in busyness or success. Solitude in prayer allows us to see that our worth, our true self, is grounded in who we are in God through Jesus Christ, period. Not in how much we do, not in everything we accomplish, and not if we are the highest of success in wherever we're trying to achieve. Solitude in prayer reminds us where our true grounding lies, and that is in our identity with God. Because in our life, the amount of busyness we can handle changes. The amount that we can see we can succeed in changes. Does anyone feel like they can do the same amount of stuff they used to 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago? Do any of you, like me, go, "Boy, I don't know anymore, but it seems like I can't do as much as I used to do"? Anyone else feel that way? Then how many of you, like me, also feel that's a bad thing? You know what that means? I'm grounding my identity in busyness. That's what it means. It means I'm grounding my identity in how much I can do, because if I'm upset about how much I can do and I'm not doing that, then that means that's where my identity is lying. Whether I want to admit it or not, that's what it's saying. It's not saying, you know what, God, you have created me just as I am. You have created us to age just as we do. And you've created us so that we cannot do the same amount we do as we age. So, Lord, my identity is in you, and if that's how you've created us, so be it. I'm okay. See, solitude in prayer then allows us to reground who we are based in whose we are. And that it gives us that sense of identity, because now, Lord, it's all about you. I come to you in the morning, in the silence and stillness of my day. First thing, so I can realize whose I am and what I can do. Jesus' way in prayer is the way that gives us the sense of living into that abundant life. For when our success isn't measured in what we do or how much we do, but our identity then is truly grounded in God, boy, our days become a whole lot lighter. This is the way of Jesus. This is the way of prayer. So then, Peter went there. Where are you? Everybody's looking for you. In other words, he's ready to tell Jesus, right? He had just done a whole bunch of miracles and healings. Everybody was looking for him to be able to come right back and continue what he was doing. That's what he's here to do. Jesus, you've got a big crowd coming. Woohoo! You ready? Oh man, this is going to be a great day. You're going to have a whole lot of stuff to do. This is going to be great. I can't wait to see it. Ooh. And then what does Jesus say? Let's head in a different direction. That's why I've come. I wish I could have seen Simon Peter's face. I don't know what it was like, but I think it was more like, huh? I mean, I'm just putting myself in that place, running like Simon did to it. Jesus, come on, let's everybody go. We're going to get there. And he was just like, but Jesus, everybody's right here. Why are you going other places? Because that's what I'm here to do. And so what we find out is through this is that prayer gives us that clarity to say, everyone repeat this 2-letter word with me. Ready? No. All right, let's try that again. No. To distraction. No. No to distraction. And yes to our purpose. See, we end up being guided by distraction without even knowing it. And if you're like me, no just doesn't come out as easy as yes. It's like, let me think about it. Well, maybe. No. See, that centering in the morning helps to give us that clarity, that thought, being able to separate out then what's distraction and what is purpose, so that we can live into our purpose of our lives, not into the distractions of our life. Because you know there are always going to be a whole lot more requests coming in than you have time to do. And the last time I checked, we have 24 hours in a day. And that doesn't change. The amount of time we have doesn't change. The amount of sleep you need doesn't change. Some of you are short sleepers. I envy you. Short sleepers are people who need between 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night. And that's it. After 4 to 5 hours, they're up and ready to go. That is the way they're wired. And we know there are people whose body rhythms are that way. 5, 4, 5, 6 at the most, and they're up and they're ready to go, and they're moving. If you're a short sleeper, you get more done in a day. There are then the average sleepers, which are more around 7.5 to 8 hours a day. So if you're one of those, you know where you are. I am neither. I'm a long sleeper. I've had to do research because that's what I do. And I find out that there are people who just need more sleep. That is just the way their genetics and bodies are wired. I need 9 hours of sleep a night to be well rested. I need it. If I get 8, I'm groggy. If I get less, forget it. And other people will say, no, you're just darn lazy. And if you're a short sleeper, you'll go, well, I don't understand because I get 5 hours of sleep and I'm ready to go. But through studies, sleep studies, we know there are these 3 different types of people. Genetically, everybody is wired in one of these 3 ways. You're either a short sleeper, an average sleeper, or a long sleeper. Do you know which one you are? If you know which one you are you getting the right amount of sleep? And I'm getting at this because this now adjusts our day, right? As a long sleeper, I cannot get done the same amount of things that a short sleeper can do. Well, guess what? That's just the way God has made me. I can't change that. I can't. It's the way my genetics have wired me. So I have to learn to say no a whole lot more than a short sleeper because, boy, if you're a short sleeper, you get more done. And that's okay. So I have to learn how to say no more because how many hours do we have in a day? 24. So I have to learn what I'm going to say yes to and what I'm going to say no to. We all do. Because when we start to be in this prayer, we end up taking this time to have clarity of what we can say yes and what we can say no to. We have to put things based down on what we believe are important. That's just the way it is. If you're of working age, you have a job to do, right? You have certain hours you have to work. Am I right? Guess what that eats into? Your 24 hours in a day. It's just the way it works. Guess what you have to learn how to do to say no to distraction? Yes to purpose. You can't do that unless you silently sit with God, hopefully every morning to say, let me just rest and be silent. To set myself under your guidance and direction so that I may move forward. Jesus' way of prayer is not one of an obligation. It's not one that is to be hard. Rather, it is one that sets us up to live an abundant life. It's the way of Jesus into this life. It may seem sometimes like it's a routine. It may seem like it's just a habit. But it's a way that allows us to live our full life free of distraction, but abundant because we're living into our purpose. I'd like just to leave you with a few questions to think about. And if you wish to have these, they are on that insert that you have as well. So you can ask yourself, what distractions keep me from spending quiet time with God? If you don't spend quiet time with God first thing in the morning, what's stopping you? You got to identify it. I didn't get enough sleep. I feel like I have much to do. I don't feel like it's worth it. I can't be quiet. Just what is it? If you do, I'm glad you do. I do it sometimes with my cup of coffee in the morning. And other times I have an oh no moment. I'll admit it first thing. And then I don't spend time with God. And then I go, ugh. And guess what I have to do then? About 1 o'clock. Reset. Right? If you don't do this and you want to, give yourself grace. If all of a sudden at 1 o'clock you realize, wait, I didn't spend time with God this morning and I'm running crazy, guess what you can do? Right? All right, let me stop right now and reset. Isn't it wonderful that we have that reset button all the time? We just have to take it. But what is it? What distractions keep you from that? Ask yourself, how might or how does my day feel different when I begin it with prayer? Sometimes you have to use both, right? You have to remember what it was like when you did so that you can think about what it might look like. What do you think? How do you think your day would be different if you began it with prayer? If you began it being able to say no to the distractions and yes to your purpose? What would that look like? Ask yourself. What would that look like? And then what bold step might God be inviting me to take, even if it feels countercultural or unexpected? That's what Jesus did, right? Everybody's looking for you. Let's come heal the tons of people here. Yeah, no, I think I'm going somewhere else where I'm going to start fresh and anew, where the numbers may be lousy. It doesn't matter because that's what I'm called to do. So what might that bold step be for you? If you don't know what God's inviting you to, maybe you need to start with some silence. So my challenge to you this week, try to create a consistent habit of silent prayer, even if it is just 5 minutes a day. You know how we started the worship service? And I asked, hey, if you're comfortable, sit and breathe and focus on how you sit and feel and do that. That's a way that you can start into silent prayer if you have a hard time keeping those intrusive thoughts from your head. Truly. Now, if you can't do that, and sometimes it's hard because you need somebody else leading you into that, either next week or the week after, I'll try to have something that you can have on your phone that you can push just to lead you through, because sometimes it's hard for us to do it in our own head. And then, step away from the noise and let God speak into your heart before you start acting on your day. We ask you to try to be silent, to be present. And I think when you do that, you'll ultimately find that you will be changed. I'm going to say this prayer, and if this prayer resonates with you, feel free to say it in your heart or your mind or aloud with me. If you just prefer to just listen to the prayer, that is fine. Or if as the prayer is being said, there are words that you feel you must go in that direction, go that way, for that is probably the Spirit's prompting you to what's necessary for you. Holy God, in a world that demands constant attention, help me to pause. In the quiet, meet me again. Let prayer shape not only my words, but my choices and direction. May I act only after I've listened for your voice. Amen.